Livestock leases establish the relationship between one or more of your livestock owner and/or operators. A lease agreement is assigned to each one of your livestock production center details. We're going to go through adding your livestock leases from setup, profit production centers, and livestock leases. Prior to creating your livestock leases, you will have wanted to add the individuals and companies that are part of your livestock production under livestock owner operators. We're going to go to the leases, and on our list is an existing CenterPoint livestock. Let's take a look at that one first. We have an abbreviation and a name that we wanted to assign to this lease agreement. You have the choice on ownership type of owned, cash rent, or shared. In the case of owned, that will typically be your owner-operators that represent a company in CenterPoint. So CenterPoint Livestock is associated to CenterPoint Farm. They own and they take care of the production of livestock that this lease agreement is assigned to. You also have an active box if you want to inactivate a lease agreement at a later time. So we're going to go ahead and save this one and now make another lease agreement. And this one is going to be for two brothers that are actually feeding livestock that CenterPoint Farm owns. So we're going to call this agreement Reynolds because the two brothers are Jack and Caleb Reynolds. And the ownership type this time will be shared. So in this case, the CenterPoint Farm owns the livestock, but they're being fed by two other individuals that are not employees of CenterPoint. We just have an agreement where they're feeding this livestock at this location, and we get a portion of the production and they get a portion of the production. So the two operators involved will be Caleb Reynolds, and he'll get 50% because he is sharing with his brother Jack. 50%. They are both involved in that production. And the owners will be the CenterPoint Livestock. And 100% there. We could have multiple companies here also if the case were, but in this case we just have CenterPoint Livestock and they'll get 100% of the owner's share. Over on the right you identify what that ratio is. So for the operators, they have indicated that they will get 60% and the owners will get 40%. So if we have a production of, let's say, 100 head to be easy, then the Reynolds brothers would get 60 of that 100. CenterPoint Livestock would get 40 of that 100 head of new production. In the 60 head that would not make transactions in CenterPoint because Caleb and Jack are not companies in CenterPoint. They would just get the 60 head, but that would not be indicated in transactions or in inventory in CenterPoint. CenterPoint Livestock, which is part of CenterPoint Farm, would get 40 head. It would make a transaction with that livestock production, and it would get 40 head increased in inventory if inventory was maintained. So that is what the shared ownership will do, is identifies what portion goes to each depending upon if they're an operator or an owner. You can use your different owner operators in as many different lease agreements as needed that identify the different situations you might have in your livestock production. The other ownership type would be cash rent, and that would be used in a situation where perhaps you are feeding some livestock that is owned by someone else. Then CenterPoint Livestock in this case would be the operator at 100%, or could be shared with another owner operator, and the owner operator, the owner would be someone who owns that livestock. Perhaps that is our Sam Myers, and we would put that in as 100%. So in this case, CenterPoint Livestock, which is associated to CenterPoint Farm, would still get 100% of the production because it's cash rent. Sam Myers would not get any production. They're just getting paid a fixed amount for owning the livestock, but it's being fed by CenterPoint Livestock. And those are the different types of lease agreements that you can have, and each livestock production detail will be assigned a lease agreement. You can use a lease agreement in as many different production details as needed, but each lease agreement will identify the different ratios that you might have in your situation. And the next thing that we'll do is we'll be creating the livestock production center details.